Welcome back to the Kleen-Rite Radio podcast. I'm Fix It with Phil, and as always, I am joined by my good buddy Marc Tyndale. Marc, how we doing this morning?
I'm doing great today, Phil.
I love hearing that. I am doing good as well, and I am beyond excited to welcome Tony and Michael from Ascentium Capital on with us today to sit and talk about financing, how to get that big project done at your car wash, and how to keep some of that liquid cash that you have in the bank account for those safety reserves, whether you need to get some extra work done, need some quick maintenance done, or you have an emergency. Guys, welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
Doing great. Thanks a lot, guys. We really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk to you guys and your audience, and we're excited to be here as well.
Great. Mike, you doing all right?
Yeah, guys. Thanks for having us on. We're big fans of the podcast, and we're excited about the new partnership.
Excellent.
Well, we are absolutely big fans of Ascentium. You have been helping a lot of our customers get into that 20% that we always talk about, and that is a big move for us, a big move for our customers, and it has just been working out so well.
Yeah. So we're super excited today to talk about the access to capital. We have our customer base across the country. You know, they may need anywhere from $25,000 to $400,000 to make improvements. A lot of our clients, we have a lot of new to industry clients who are buying car washes and did not plan for the CapEx right out of the gate. Some of them didn't actually know what they were buying. They call us every day. Mm-hmm. And then there's the experienced operators who know they need to make upgrades, and they're looking at, do I go to an equipment finance lease? Do I go stretch out my line of credit? Do I use cash from my kitty? Or do I go to an SBA or to a traditional bank for a traditional loan? So what we want to talk about today really is the differences between those vehicles to get cash or money, save your working capital to pay yourself or to pay your employees or to pay for that power washing or to do smaller upgrades, and really use the tools that are out there to access the capital to make the improvements so that you can raise your prices and have new equipment. I know from the car washes that I look at, if it's an experienced operator, a lot of times, that equipment has paid for itself year over year over year over year. And operators are starting to realize it's time to stop chasing repairs, get the new stuff in, get the new signs, get the new wall panels, get the new lighting packages, get the new automatic. And they have competition now or that they didn't have before. So let's just dive into that. I think, Tony, in our prep, we were talking, you had some great comments about, let's start with the difference between the equipment finance lease, the SBA loan, the line of credit, and the bank. If we can just touch on each one of those so our viewers, listeners understand the main differences, and one being the equipment finance lease, which is quick access to capital, and on the other side of the spectrum, traditional bank financing, which is a longer churn to try to get that capital. And so I'll just let you dive into it.
Yeah, you bet. Sure. Thanks. As you mentioned, there's a lot of vehicles. Some will get you there, some won't. And so just like when you select an equipment professional to help you determine what equipment is best for your wash and your business, a lot of things are taken into consideration. The location, the demographic, the traffic, the type of building, the utilities available. There's a lot of things to consider that some marketers may not be thinking about. The same is true when it comes to finance, and it's always a good idea to select a partner who can guide you in the right area. You want to talk to maybe several people to find out the vehicle that's best for you. But we specialize in equipment financing, like you said, we consider this convenient access to capital for equipment and some betterment projects, whether it's new equipment or repairs to existing equipment. Um, if there's real estate involved in SBA, let's say it's an acquisition, or you've had the property for a while under land contract, and you want to buy out the real estate, an SBA may be the way to go. If for those people who have really good relationships with their bank, sometimes the process is a little bit easier. But as you mentioned, those types of vehicles they come with more of a grueling process. They're going to require a lot more information than your typical equipment finance company. So
Yeah, I know.
and that's go ahead.
I know from just my personal experience that, because I've done both. I've done, the bank loan for 7 figures to do that purchase and rehab, but I needed an automatic and I wanted to do it quickly, and the equipment finance lease was very simple, easy access, quick turnaround. So, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, because you were on a thought process, but I think that's important for people to understand. There's a big difference between where you guys are and where you need both. Everyone should actually, it's an and, it's not an or, I guess, from my perspective.
That's right. The two most common types of financing for the smaller business is equipment financing or bank financing. To your point, a one-page application for an equipment finance company is common. If financials are required, our application only product goes up to $400,000. For most equipment finance companies, that will range between $250,000 and $400,000. Very little financial information is required. There isn't a lengthy underwriting process. Usually, we can get a response from credit off of an application in just a couple of hours. Whereas, to your point, bank financing isn't as friendly. They usually want 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 years of complete financial information. So tax returns, debt schedules, balance sheets, personal financial statements. They're really doing a deep dive, and they want to make sure that the debt to income ratio that they require is being met. They're going to look at a lot of different metrics to determine whether or not you're credit worthy.
So
go ahead.
So for a guy like me, and I love using that phrase, a guy like me, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not, too privy to exactly how all this works. We're talking about loans of up to $400,000, but what all, when we're talking about an equipment loan as a mechanic, I'm immediately thinking the only thing I can use this money for is to buy a piece of equipment. Is that the case, or can I actually use, if I come to Ascentium for an equipment loan, can I use that to put up white paneling on the walls? Can I use that to update the lights? Can I use that, to tackle some of those projects along with the equipment upgrade as well?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people, when they think of equipment financing, they think, okay, I can buy the equipment with this financing, but then I've got to come out of pocket for everything else.
Yeah.
And while equipment financing, we're going to find that in order to qualify for an equipment finance agreement, or let's say a dollar out lease, which is a very similar product, the majority of that contract has to be equipment. So in our case, we have a very high soft cost tolerance. Soft costs are things like labor and freight and tax and in general construction costs, things that really aren't considered tangible. Mm-hmm. Equipment is typically referred to as the actual car wash system, the nuts and bolts, the mechanical part of the system. But the other things that you mentioned are also considered equipment. So like the panels inside, lighting, signage, re-imaging. Re-imaging can be vinyl decals, things that you wouldn't consider generally to be equipment. we can include those, and we can include a considerable amount of those construction costs that are related to the install of the equipment. A lot of times there's concrete repairs and plumbing enhancements and a lot of electrical. We can include a lot of those things. So we really want 60% equipment and materials, and then the other 40% can be labor and those other soft costs that I mentioned.
I know when I was a distributor and I used equipment finance leases as a vehicle for a lot of customers. And a lot of times there's when they hear the word lease, they don't realize that it's a dollar buyout. So at the end of the term, the lease doesn't continue. You own everything, right?
That's right. There's several products in the equipment finance space. The industry has largely shifted towards equipment finance agreements. You have an equipment finance agreement, you have a dollar buyout lease, and then you have a fair market value lease, which really has kind of gone to the wayside. So let's just talk a little bit about the dollar buyout lease. The major difference between an equipment finance agreement and a dollar buyout lease is when we request the invoice from the equipment vendor, on an equipment finance agreement, the bill to and the ship to is the customer. There's immediate ownership transfer. On a dollar buyout lease, the bill to will be Ascentium Capital, and the ship to will be the customer on that invoice. Once the customer makes the final dollar payout at the end, then the ownership transfers. So for accounting purposes, sometimes the accountants will say, we want to treat this more like a lease than a purchase. But with the enhancements to the IRS 179, I guess the evolution of the accelerated depreciation benefits through IRS 179, that's kind of pushed that product to the side. An equipment finance agreement is like a lease with a fixed payment and a set term, and usually a zero buyout at the end. There's not a residual or a balloon payment or anything like that. So for tax purposes, an equipment finance agreement it books just like a purchase, so it's fully eligible for the accelerated depreciation benefits.
So as we're talking about all these different plans, I'm going to use the word plans to describe the different ways that we can borrow money. I'm a small operator. My business is starting to slow down a little bit. I know I need to make some enhancements to get that revenue to get back up. Let's say I have about $50,000 in the bank account sitting, free cash, just sitting, waiting. I don't really want to use that money up, but I know that I need to do, let's say, $250,000 worth of work. How do I know where I fall into what plan I would be eligible for, or what would be the best route for me to go? Is that, to present all those things and what I want to do to you? Or do I need to do some homework on my end? Where do I start?
Yeah, again, it all comes down to knowledge is king, right? So when you're selecting a consultant or an equipment distributor, equipment distributors, I'm really impressed I was an equipment sales guy in a past life in a different industry, but I'm always impressed by our vendors' sales reps, because our equipment partners, they really know their stuff. A lot of them are marketers or have been marketers themselves. They really know the industry. They care about their customers. They're doing the best job to suggest the best remedies for the customer's problems. And as salespeople, we're problem solvers. We want to build those relationships with our customers. We want to learn what hurts, and we want to develop and help them deploy solutions that are going to fix the problem. So on the other side, it's equally as important to select a finance partner who can discuss these things with you. You tell your finance partner, listen, this is what we've got in liquid reserves. These are the enhancements that we're considering doing. We think this is the lift that we're going to get from them. And we're formulating a plan. This is the amount of time we think that we're going to be affected during the renovations. We have, once the old equipment comes out and the new equipment goes in, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen in between. So we're expecting some downtime. These are important things for us to know. And a lot of times we're working with our equipment suppliers like Kleen-Rite to get some information there too, that maybe the customer hasn't thought to ask or hasn't told us. We really want to know exactly where the customer stands from a credit perspective, from a capital reserve perspective. All these things will help us put together the right plan. Things that you wouldn't probably think to ask your bank. Mm-hmm. An equipment finance company, our motto is fast, flexible financing. We talked about the speed of the process, how quickly we can underwrite things, but really the ability to be flexible can play into a customer's plan. And I'll give you an example. Let's say the wash has been kind of up and down for the last year. It's finally to the point where it just can't be repaired anymore, but the marketer's been losing revenue because the equipment's been intermittent, or a big competitor came in down the street.
The cone's out a lot. That's how we. Yep. When the cone's out a lot, it's time to consider, because you're paying that distributor, sometimes $150 an hour or more. And when I was a distributor, sometimes when the customers were paying me more in service a month than they were taking in revenue, it's time to consider new equipment.
Exactly. And if you've got a little bit of money in the bank and all of a sudden you're starting to dip into it, you're getting nervous. So when somebody starts looking at the price tag of new equipment, it creates anxiety. And then when we hit them with what the monthly payment will be, they've got a really, they're excited about the potential earnings that this new, the new image and the new equipment can produce. But it can be nervous when you're thinking about putting that money out. So what we might think to do is offer either a deferred payment option where the customer, we pay for all of the equipment up front
to cover some of that stabilization period that they might need to get going. Tony,
that's right.
Not to interrupt your path, but let's talk real quickly about the big beautiful bill, right? So
can I finish I just want to finish the point because I think this is valuable.
No, go for it. We love that.
Yeah. Most finance companies will think to offer a 3-month deferral, but they won't, they might not realize or be able to have the ability to pause the customer's payments during the renovation period. So let's say the equipment's going to take 3 or 4 months to come in once it's ordered. And a deposit's required on that equipment to initiate the order, right? If we know when the installation is going to occur, we can build in a 3-month pause of payments. So yeah, the customer has to start making their payments now, but they're still making revenue until the equipment comes in. And then once the installation process starts, when those payments are paused, it really, they're not worried about making those payments when they don't see cars entering.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Helps alleviate some of that stress.
Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll do seasonal payments for some too, so that we can maybe lower the payments, cut the payments in half during the summer and pay a little bit more during the winter. Those are things that we think to do when talking to a customer once we learn more about their business.
Yep. So Tony, depending on, let's talk about the depreciation effects of the big beautiful bill. Does whether you're doing an equipment finance lease or traditional bank,
Mark, it's important to realize that the IRS 179 legislation has been around for decades.
Yeah.
So the big beautiful bill just enhanced. There were enhancements that came out of the big beautiful bill. So I think
I was around for GW too, so I do remember. Some of these guys don't, but I took advantage of that for 20 years. So but and you can certainly mention that. I think that's an important point too, that this thing has been around. It's just it it has circled back around.
So does it matter what type of loan I'm going after? Does that change how these enhancements affect me?
So, and I'm not a CPA, so I have to be careful of how I speak, but traditionally, the equipment that is eligible for the depreciation benefit, the accelerated depreciation, is equipment that you own. So if you have an IRS, I'm sorry, if you have a dollar buyout lease, Ascentium Capital technically owns that equipment until the end. So most accountants probably won't allow you to depreciate that asset. Whereas if you finance it through a bank, or if you pay cash, or you use an equipment finance agreement, the ownership transfer is immediate. So you can accelerate the depreciation on those items.
So that's
as
a
long as they're
great
put into
point.
service this year.
That's a great point. If you want to take advantage of this through, let's say your company, you want to do the equipment, the finance agreement.
Equipment finance agreement, and 99.9% of the contracts that we write, and we write thousands, we're an enormous company. We write very few dollar buyout leases or fair market value. Our primary product is equipment finance agreement. And
Right.
there are some states where occasionally it makes more sense, but we don't talk about it. It's an equipment finance agreement for 99% of the customers is the best.
I don't think I ever talked anybody into a fair market value, only because, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it lowers the payment a little bit, but it's pay me now or pay me later kind of thing, right? I mean, there's a residual left over, and you don't want that.
That's exactly right, Mark. And we can build a residual or a balloon payment into an EFA.
Yeah.
We can put it in the front, we can put it in the back. So you're accomplishing the same. There's not really a true operating lease that's compatible with this industry. It's not a copier. You're not going to rent 30% of the life of the machine and then turn it back over
and
to
pay by the
Kleen-Rite.
piece of paper. I used to hate those.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of them.
So you guys can cut up about all the different kinds of loans that there are, but really for me, and I would say some good portion of people like me listening to this podcast, is how does the enhancements of this depreciation help me at the end of the day? If I come to you and get $250,000 loan to do an equipment upgrade and whatnot, how do the enhancements to the big, beautiful bill help me with depreciation? And what does that look like for me as a business owner moving forward?
Yeah, so I can just jump in here, guys. They recently signed One Big Beautiful Act. It's really given small businesses a big boost by really allowing them to reinstate and make permanent 100% bonus depreciation and enhancing tax deductions. So these changes empower our car washes and our business owners to better plan and capitalize on those opportunities with confidence. Like Tony mentioned, the IRS 179 has been in place for decades, and there's three major enhancements from our perspective that we've seen. So the first one would be the deduction limit increases, and it's doubled from 1.25 million to 2.5. The second one being a phase out threshold, increasing from 3.13 million all the way up to 4 million, which is significant. And then the bonus depreciation bumps back up from where we were at originally 40% to 100% indefinitely for qualified assets acquired on or after January 20th of this year, 2025. So, the new deduction limit and phase out threshold, those may be adjusted in upcoming years for inflation purposes, but that's where we are right now.
And to an operator, because I experience this depreciation on an annual basis, it's huge, right? So I have partners, family members, and everybody hates estimated payments. When you have multiple businesses or more than one car wash, let's say you have you're a W-2 employee one place, but you have multiple businesses. Reducing that net operating income at the end of the year is a great tool, because if you have to increase your estimates every year, it feels like you're actually losing, right? And lowered estimates because of depreciation is just a great tool for operators who are one or two car washes to use capital for other things and not just park it into an estimated payment account for the IRS. To me,
Correct.
that's what it does for me. I don't know what it does for other folks.
Well, one of the best parts, with Marc, with your customers, on every single approval we're grabbing, I'm sending your customers an estimate of the tax savings with each approval in the email represented with the equipment invoice
Good.
and the approval. And the savings are represented as really a discount on your equipment. So that's just another small example of how we're providing value and adding value for our partners like Kleen-Rite wherever possible. Banks certainly have a purpose, and I'm always consulting our customers on this, but I tread lightly here. Most smart business owners will finance equipment with an equipment finance company like us and leave their bank borrowing lines available for everything else. They know they can accelerate the depreciation on the equipment anyhow. They can save, let's say, 22% on their tax burden. Also worth considering if you're using up all your bank borrowing power on equipment purchases and you have a need for a car wash, you have less flexibility at the end of the day. And you might be forced to go to a working capital unsecured market and pay an outrageous rate. So it just equipment financing makes really good sense in these scenarios.
Great. That's awesome. Awesome information for everyone listening.
Yeah, I mean
Marc?
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I just want to add, some of the listeners might be thinking, they might be wondering, do I have to depreciate 100% of that asset the first year when I put it in service? And the answer is no. Traditionally, assets have been for years and years were depreciated 20% over 5 years was really common. But with the IRS 179, if you want to take the accelerated depreciation benefit, you don't have to take 100% of it this year. A lot of times when equipment is installed towards the latter part of the year, the benefit of the additional revenue from that hasn't been realized yet. The benefit the lift will come next year.
Yeah, you want to
So
push
why
it.
would I want
You
to
want to push it
depreciate?
out.
If I haven't made any money, I don't want to blow that all in 1 year. You can cut that up as well.
Yeah.
You can take 50% this year and 50% next year.
I know our
wow.
CPA does a calculation. He doesn't want to over depreciate. So the last big one we did, he spread it out over 3 to 5 years, and a good CPA can walk you through how much you want to depreciate, and you have to use the professionals that are out there. If you're just using a bookkeeper for this stuff, it's kind of hard to decide. You really need a tax guy to help you out. I mean, just like you need a finance guy, your tax guy should be able to help you out as well.
Partners are key.
Yes.
Yeah, you definitely need a good team to surround you to make good business decisions. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So guys, this
has been fantastic.
This
It's
is great info.
Huge learning lesson for me, and I'm sure for all of our listeners out there. There's a lot of information that's been given that I had no clue of, and I'm sure that it brings some light to some of the operators out there that have been thinking about giving Ascentium a call or giving Kleen-Rite a call and looking to make that big move to get from that low 80% to the high 20%. So as always, we appreciate your time and the information and the partnership that we've formed, and would just truly like to say thank you for helping all of our customers achieve their car wash dreams.
Yeah. We've had some great experiences with you guys, and you've been very helpful. So thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate and value the relationship, and we're in this to help customers with convenient access to capital. That's what we do, and if it helps to get them closer to realizing their dreams, enhancing their businesses, we've helped customers resurrect their businesses. It's exciting to see people realize their dreams. People put their heart and soul, their whole lives into their businesses, and when they're struggling, it's really tough to see. So any way we can help, we just appreciate the opportunity to be involved.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Kleen-Rite Radio Podcast. Want to give a huge shout out to Ascentium for sponsoring this series and for being on this episode and giving us all the dirt on finance and what it means to do it.
And don't forget to, if you have any questions, send us an email at Kleen-Rite Radio at Kleen-Rite.com. And also don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you listen on. Our main platform's Podbean, but people listen on YouTube, Apple, whatever.
Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, thanks.